Welcome to Trucking with the OIDA. I'm Ashley Blackford.
I'm Scott Thompson.
Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing just great.
That's
How
good.
are you doing?
Doing good.
Good.
It will come as no surprise to you that cargo theft is
Bad.
an issue.
It's bad.
It's not good.
I am anti-cargo theft for the record.
As am I.
Okay, good.
CargoNet recently released its analysis of the trends for the third quarter of the year. To help break those all down, we've got Keith Lewis on the line. He is the Vice President of Operations at CargoNet. Let's take a listen. Keith Lewis, third quarter, we've got the stats regarding cargo theft. Just talk to me about how things looked in the third quarter.
Sure. Well, we've seen an uptick in certain specific commodities, one of those being copper. That's very concerning. It's probably tripled from last year.
Wow.
A lot of factors involved in that, the price of copper, tariff anxiety, and those type of things. And the method of stealing these type of goods is continuing to rise of fraud and deception, using fraudulent means and load boards to commit these acts. And, somebody asked me the other day what I thought, and I think that we are probably at the new norm, that the numbers are probably not going to come back down, that the bad guys have figured out a way to attack the supply chain, and they're just going to continue to do it.
That's interesting you say that, because the numbers do reflect kind of a leveling off as compared to a year ago and as compared to the second quarter. I looked at that as maybe some good news. I guess it's good in the respect that it's not going up. But I hear you saying that may be just kind of where we are now for the foreseeable future.
Sure. And what we say is that one of the things that's concerning is that we don't have 100% reporting. There's no mandatory reporting with cargo theft. You're not required to make a theft report if somebody breaks into your shed and steals your lawnmower. It's the same thing with with cargo theft. So, you're probably looking at about 10. Those that call themselves subject matter experts in our world are saying that only about 10% of all thefts are reported to us. So that is a concern. But the thing is, I look at our numbers and they're consistent, which tells me our numbers are good. The consistency tells me our numbers are solid. And we can only go with what's reported to us. But again, those that say they're experts say that we're taking in about 10% of the overall theft.
It was mentioned in the report, evolving tactics among organized crime groups. I'm curious, what were some of those that you noticed?
Well, what we learned from COVID was, and all of this big increase started with COVID, but what we learned from COVID is we could work from home. And then we realized we could not only work from home, but we could work from anywhere in the world. And we've tracked these organized crime rings to over 40 countries globally. So we're not just looking at a threat within our borders. We're looking at a global threat now. And with fraud and deception, with the techniques that they're using, it's very difficult to track down, these folks through their IP address or any of that. And the thing that really concerns me is that where your members come into play is a lot of these fraudsters are using your good members that are honest, hardworking, professional drivers to commit these acts for them through deception, reposting of loads, the ruse of it's a blind shipment, and they're getting innocent surrogates to carry out this crime for them.
Yeah, which is obviously concerning on a number of levels. The thing that strikes me as I hear you talking, Keith, is that they are really good at what they do, unfortunately, and they have figured out kind of a secret formula, I guess. They have figured out the way to do this to where they can continue doing it and not get caught. Are we any closer to figuring out how to do that? I mean, I think maybe it comes down to an individual level type thing, but on a grand scale, are we anywhere near figuring out how to stop these bad guys?
Well, it's a very good question. The bad guys are good at a couple of things. Number one, they're very good at return on investment. They're only stealing commodities that they can make a significant profit margin on. And they're stealing what the consumer is buying. The other thing they're very good at is they know our business just as well as we know it, because most, if not all of these folks are in our business or have worked in our business in some capacity. On the other side of that question is, are we closer to slowing these folks down. Every time we come up with a different technique to slow them down, they do an end around on us and come up with a new technique. I've seen techniques that are just unbelievable come up every couple of weeks, and every time I think I've seen it all, I have not seen it all. They're very good. If anybody's heard me say this expression, is our industry, those of us in my space, we're playing checkers and the bad guys are playing chess. So we're having to play catch up with them all the time on everything they do. And with the supply chain moving at the speed of light right now, we want a product, we order it, they make it today, we ship it tonight. It's on the road tomorrow, and it's at my dock door the third day, compared to what we did, say, 25 or 30 years ago of safety stock in the warehouse. It's a total different way we do business. And the bad actors have figured that out. And they figured out that the speed, the efficiency, and the effectiveness of how we move goods now, that is their opportunity to steal.
I can't see you right now, but I imagine when these things pop up, and you've been in this industry and doing this for a long time, to hear you say that you're seeing things every few weeks that surprise you, that tells me that they are, again, however many steps ahead of the rest of us they are. What are some of those things that you're seeing that you're like, oh my gosh, they've figured this out now, or they're doing this now? Do you have a couple examples that you could share with us?
I do, but obviously I can't share those things because I'd be giving somebody the recipe on how to make the secret sauce.
True.
Good point. I'm not trying to get state secrets. I promise.
We're not trying to make the problem worse.
Yeah.
We're trying to fix the problem.
But again, I think the underlying thing then, with that in mind, that's a great point. But it just is if you are seeing these things and you are shaking your head and thinking, oh my gosh, they've figured this out now and they're doing it. That speaks to just how quickly they're moving and what they're thinking about too.
Well, if you think about, they've got all day to figure out an end around.
Yeah.
It's X's and O's, and it's offense and defense, and we're on defense and they're on offense, and they're wearing the defensive line down here. We come up with a different way to block the running back, and they come up with a different way to run the play, and it's that back and forth. As soon as we figure out a new prevention technique, they figure out they're already working on. And, if you look, how you buy MC numbers now, you can buy an MC number on Facebook Marketplace, and it's who you're set up the hall for and who's vetted you and how long you've been in business. All of those things add to the problem of fraud. And again, I get back to they're using, your good members, your professional drivers that are involved in your association to commit their fraudulent acts and crimes.
Yeah, I wanted to dig a little bit into the numbers. Q3 showed 772 cargo theft events across the U.S. and Canada, which was down 10% from the second quarter. That seemed kind of like a big jump volume-wise, but then I read that the financial impact took a hit.
Well, if you look at the cost of goods, the cost of goods is much higher. And sometimes when we see that downturn, we say, well, my old expression is you can only sell so many macadamia nuts in the macadamia nut store, meaning nobody's buying right now. So if the bad guys don't have a market to sell these goods, the thefts are going to go down because they're not going to continue stealing things and then warehouse them, hoping that the prices come up and the demand comes up for the stolen goods. So it's an ever flow with the economy. It's how much money that the consumer has. And we saw, people are starting to tighten up their belts, concerned about interest rates and things like that. Although I think we just had some movement last week on the interest rate coming down, a small amount. So, you have to look at I'm not an economist, but you have to look at this from an economist's point of view on supply, demand, market, and those type of things. The value of the goods, if you look at what was stolen, say, 20, 25 years ago, what was big back then, 20, 25 years ago, is when they first came out with big screen televisions, right? Mm-hmm. And that was the big thing. A big screen television was $4,000 or $5,000. Now that same TV is $400. So they've moved their tactics to, say, virtual reality headsets, gaming, and those type of things. You can only buy so many of those and put so many of those in the home, and then the bad guys start stealing food products or go back to a different type of commodity. I had one customer call me a year or so ago, sitting at the airport, and he calls me up and he said, I just realized I've had 50 thefts. And I just found out about it today. So that's the kind of world that I'm living in on a day-to-day basis.
Wait, explain that for us if you would. They had 50 cargo theft events and they had just found out about them because things had been rerouted, or how did that play out?
So the shipments were diverted. So the bad guys, intercepted the loads online. They reposted them. And then they used, owner-operators and told the owner-operators they were blind shipments and got the loads, deferred somewhere else. And then they forged the bill lading and showed that the loads were delivered. And when, the PO doesn't get closed out and the shipper contacts the consignee and says, okay, well, it's time to pay us for all these goods, the consignee says, well, you still owe me 50 more loads. And then they start doing, a drill down on it, and they realize that all these shipping documents, these bill of ladings, have been forged. And you have to remember, for your owner-operators out there, your members, a bill of lading is a legal contract. Mm-hmm. And if someone asks you to say and says to you, hey, this is a blind shipment, this isn't going from A to B, it's going from A to C, we want you to go to the truck stop and buy a bill of lading and write out a bill of lading, there's the biggest red flag there that you're possibly getting ready to be used in a criminal adventure here. Go down a path of picking up a high-value load. Instead of taking it to the consignee, you take it to the bad guy's cross-dock, and maybe I can't, I got my law enforcement hat on, maybe I can't charge you criminally for that act because you were duped as well, but think about this, you're not going to get paid for that load.
Let me ask you this, because from the start of the history of trucking to up to just, several years ago, when you talked about cargo theft, you were talking about an individual or individuals, stealing a load out of the back of a trailer. And we certainly still see that. Anytime we get a news report out of Philadelphia about, however many pounds of meat being stolen or this or that, it kind of brings things back into focus here. And I may be putting you on the spot here, but I'm curious if we know what the percentage is now of cargo theft, the traditional cargo theft of the one, again, I was just explaining there, and the less traditional one that has become far more common now than it ever was before in terms of redirects and fraud and all that. Do we have an idea of what percentage of each of those make up, cargo theft incidents right now?
It's just north of 40%.
40% for the traditional?
No.
Oh, okay.
The fraud is reached just north of 40% right now.
And I imagine you expect that to go up and up and up.
Yeah, it depends. A lot of it depends on, there's a lot of different factors. Who gets arrested, who doesn't get arrested. The crews, they switch up their tactics. So they may be doing fraudulent crimes right now. And next month they may switch their tactics back to following that truck and trailer out of that electronics warehouse in San Bernardino to where the driver crosses into Arizona, pulls into the truck stop, and they either steal the tractor trailer or just, a couple hundred items off the back, which that couple hundred items off the back could be upwards of $500,000 or $1 million in today's world. So they'll switch their tactics up. But I looked at our numbers, and you can make the numbers look like anything you want to look at depending on the sample data that you look at.
Sure.
And I looked at one sample data that we had, and it was breathtaking. The fraud had jumped up in that particular time period by 1,475%. So traditional cargo theft overall is up from 2021. It's up over 100% of the numbers we were coming out of COVID.
Wow.
That's wild. Yeah.
You'd mentioned, 20 years ago, the hot ticket item was flat screen TVs. I'm curious, what are some of the popular high value shipments that are being targeted nowadays?
Well, before they were flat screens, they were big screens. Mm-hmm. So those were the ones that were really expensive.
VCRs.
But now it's flat screen. Well, yeah.
8 tracks, maybe. Back, I don't know.
Yeah. What are you trying? You're
aging yourself,
me
Scott.
on this, right? That's right. You did say in the beginning of trucking, which I was around for that, right? So right now, your hot commodity, your expensive commodity is going to be copper. Yeah. Copper and the high-end electronics, the gaming devices, and it depends. If you would have asked me this question 2 years ago, I would have said energy drinks. It was energy drinks and solar panels. So right now, the hot commodities, the high-value commodities are the copper and the high-end electronics, gaming devices, and those type of things. And we're seeing a lot of servers being stolen now, AI servers. That's the big thing right now. We've seen 2 or 3 of those loads stolen. And if I told you what those loads were valued, you probably wouldn't believe me. But it's upwards in the $30 million range for one load.
Wow.
The frustrating part there's a lot of frustrating parts about what we're talking about here. But one of them is something that you talked about there in terms of someone can be a victim and not even realize that they were, victimized or targeted until days, weeks later, I guess, in some cases. I know you've thought a lot about this, and there is no one-step solution, obviously, because you talked about how these criminals are so, advanced, and they're a few steps ahead of us, it seems like, at all times. But if you were advising an owner-operator out there, when it comes to all of this stuff, when it comes to traditional cargo theft, when it comes to, all the fraud that we're seeing out there, it can be really hard to protect yourself and make sure that you are not, being targeted. But I know there are steps that you can take, and we've talked to you about some of these before, but would you mind just kind of walking us through again, if you were speaking directly to an owner-operator who maybe has high value, commodities that they're hauling, what would you tell them? What would you tell them to do?
So it may not be high value. It could be a low value commodity, but it's high risk.
Okay.
So, for example, if you've got a low value commodity, like what we went through with COVID with paper products, it's low value, but it's a high risk. So it depends. So everything to me has value. So everything is high risk because the bad guys will steal everything. So on the surface transportation, on the driver that picks up a load and he's worried about somebody stealing his truck, take the key out of the ignition, lock the door, put an ignition cutoff switch in it. There's plenty of companies out there that make these type of devices. Glad hand locks on the glad hands. There's air valve locks for the dash. There's jack handle locks. And put a lock on the back door. I can't tell you how many times I drive down the road and I see a trailer and I can see on the side the name of the company, and it's got a plastic seal on the back door and nothing else.
Yep.
I mean, if you can't put a lock on the door, get a bicycle chain and a combination lock and wrap it around the load bars, the locking bars. Do something. Send that bad guy somewhere else. You get to the truck stop. Use the environment to make your target harder. Whether you have to back the trailer up to a berm, back it up to another trailer, back it up to a light pole. Don't stop. First off, try not to stop. But if you do, look out, make sure you're parked in a well-lit area. And then at night when you go in the truck stop, and this always is a person that came from this industry. My dad owned a trucking company. Why do drivers take that chance on backing into that tight parking spot at night when there's a risk of an accident? Just pull in. You can back out tomorrow morning when you wake up and it's well lit. And most of the other trucks will be gone. Pull in, your back doors are exposed. The bad guy's less likely to go break into that trailer where the lights are hitting it and there's other traffic around. On the fraud side, anytime that broker, the dispatcher, whoever, tells you that it's a blind shipment, your antennas have to go up. If they're using, and I know a lot of people do this, but text to talk numbers, and they're not communicating with you by phone, talking to you. All you're getting is text messages. And if you look at the text messages and you see the grammar's not what it should be, the spelling's all wrong. It looks like it could be coming from an AI type of platform where it's not a human that's doing the typing. So those are the things that I would say from a fraud standpoint for the owner operators. Blind shipments. Remember, you're not committing a crime by changing the terms of bill of lading. You're committing a civil violation where you could be sued for changing the terms of that bill of lading, and then you could be being used as part of the crime. And then if the bad guy uses you for a blind shipment from A to B instead of where it's supposed to go, they're probably not going to pay you for hauling that load.
Yeah. We Keith, and you brought up something there I wanted to ask you about too. We are on the precipice of whatever AI is going to do to us or with us or for us. I'm not sure which one, it may be all three there. But when you factor artificial intelligence into everything that you're talking about there, do you think that's going to make things that much worse? Or is there an argument to be made that, yes, they may be using AI, the bad guys, but we can also use AI to counter what they're doing? How do you feel about where we might be headed here?
Sure, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So on the risk side, I hate to use the word automation, and that's an old term for the 90s. But when we automate a process, we make it go faster and better. But when we automate a bad process, we take that bad process and we just do it wrong faster. So AI is not the good. It's going to save us. It's going to the human capital, the cost. It's going to help us in that regard. But on the other side, there's companies out there that are already doing AI load services, AI dispatching services. Are they vetting the client? Are they vetting the trucking company? Do they really have everybody? It's an AI service. So if the load doesn't get delivered, doesn't get paid, you can't go after the guy that's got the AI service company. They don't have any money. They're not responsible for anything. So it's a double-edged sword here. So it's kind of like when we started doing business or with rate confirmations, instead of back in my day, we did a trip lease for everything. It sped up the supply chain. The driver didn't have to go to the broker's office and sign a trip lease, or anybody remembers those days. Didn't have to sign a trip lease and get a bingo card and do all the other stuff. We really brought some efficiency. But with the emergence of the internet, we took that efficiency and we made it a bad process, and it helped us steal loads. So, long answer to your question, it's going to be both. It's going to help us tremendously become more effective and efficient, but there's always that risk of someone's going to use it for nefarious purposes.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. As far as locations go, were there any changes from the third quarter on the historically high targeted states or locations?
So not really. We did see an increase in copper coming out of Maryland. And it was all the same bad guy and all the same victim. So we did see a bad guy hit some copper facilities in Maryland. That's really kind of the only thing. It really wasn't an anomaly. It was just kind of like I noticed it on the map, on the heat map. But what's changed over the last 25 years is you could look at the orange spot. If you're looking at our heat map right now, you can look at Los Angeles, for example. That used to look like a red basketball. Now it looks like a red egg-shaped area because it's moved out into San Bernardino, Riverside, and in that area there, and those counties up there. So if you look at, say, if you took a heat map from 10 or 15 years ago and overlaid it on a heat map now, the difference is with the fraud that's going on in the industry versus the traditional cargo theft of stealing it by the shipper or the consignor at the truck stop, you can use fraud to steal 7 days a week from any location in the United States because you're not here. You're somewhere else, and you're just looking for those high-value goods that you're going to target. And the other thing that's changed, so I'll just kind of elaborate on that, is we used to see a V pattern in the middle of the week because of the drivers go out and make a long haul, they make a short haul, they're back home Wednesday, getting reloaded again to make another 500, 600, maybe 1,000-mile trip, deliver on Friday, and then pick up a back haul and go home. We saw a V pattern in the middle of the week. With the emergence of the fraud crimes right now, we don't see that V pattern anymore. It's more consistent because you can commit. You don't have to worry about where the truck is, or you don't have to worry about hours of service with fraud. It's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
The thing that I appreciate talking to you about, Keith, or talking with you, is you don't sugarcoat things, and you give us the facts, and you're looking at cold hard facts here, and they show a reality that is not pleasant to look at in a lot of cases. And again, your reports, CargoNet's reports, are thorough, and they give us a lot of information that I think help to educate and inform everybody out there about what's going on and maybe what we can do to curb it. We have been sharing a lot of not so great news over the past 20 so minutes or whatever it has been. Do you see, is there anything in there, and if the answer is no, that's perfectly okay too, but are you seeing anything in the data and the numbers and everything else that's out there that encourages you? I mean, is there any good news that we can take away from maybe where we are as compared to where we were? I'm fishing a little bit here, but I'm just trying to get a sense of if there's anything that encourages you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and thanks for that question. I'm glad you brought that up because my glass isn't half full; it's 3/4 full. I've got faith in this industry, and by the good work of folks like yourself putting me out there to talk to the professional drivers in the industry, hopefully we can make a difference by just this one broadcast. But I can't. Every day somebody calls and says, "Hey, thanks for sending that bolo out. Thanks for sending that alert out. We just saved ourselves from being a victim." Well, all we've done is we've moved that bad guy over to someone else, and we're slowly getting that information out. And I guess just to sum it up is, if we weren't making progress, the bad guy would keep growing, and the numbers would be. It would be, you could extrapolate them out, and we'd be going up 30-40% a year every year. But if you look at how the numbers have stabilized and kind of leveled off, as we talked about earlier, that tells me that we're doing a good job. We're combating this in a good way, because if we weren't doing the good work we were doing, we'd see year after year, we'd see 40-50% increases in the numbers.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. Keith, we very much appreciate everything that you do, and we appreciate your time in speaking with us.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. And anytime, just please give us a call.
Thanks for listening. Today's episode of Trucking with OOIDA was brought to you by a dedicated team of people. That includes Jim Fetzer, Tennille Flick, and Kim Boren.
You can listen to new episodes and extended interviews on your favorite podcast platform and on the OOIDA YouTube page. Please subscribe while you're there. If you've got thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Call us at 1-800-324-6856 and leave a message, or send us an email to podcast@ooida.com, and we might include it on the show.